So in this masterclass, I'm not only going to show you kind of a detailed breakdown of the same framework that I teach to all of my high-end clients, but I'm going to walk you through it step by step. So the 4 simple steps of this framework are reduce, schedule, prescribe, and delight. So I'm going to show you exactly how to reduce your patient cancellations by getting everyone in your office on the same page and moving in the same direction. I'm also going to show you how to increase patient visits by scheduling a consistent plan of care. You'll be amazed at the massive number of visits you could be easily seeing by just doing this one thing. I'm also going to show you a common mistake most clinics do that is robbing you of tens of thousands of dollars each and every year. And then finally, I'm going to give you actionable strategies, things you can implement immediately so you can create raving fans for your business. And the best is that when you create patients that love your practice, not only do they refer others, but your staff will love their jobs even more, creating less employee turnover. So there's lots of benefits for doing this. But before we dive in, I want to ask you basically a rhetorical question because you can't answer this, but it would be, well, how well do you know your numbers, right? Numbers, metrics, these are important things. Things such as cancellation rates, utilization rates, number of new patients, referrals, patient visits, expenses, revenue, profit. And do you have targets for each of them that has been clearly communicated to your team? If not, no worries. I'm going to review some of the key metrics and benchmarks with you today. So don't worry, you'll get some of those. Got another question here. Have you ever heard of Pearson's Law? Pearson's Law simply states what you measure improves. And much of what I'm going to show you today is all about measuring the performance of just a few key areas in your business. And when you begin to measure and address these key areas, guess what happens? That's right. Your metrics improve. Your numbers go up because of Pearson's Law. So in fact, when you begin to plug up the financial leaks of your business, you'll immediately capture revenue that otherwise would be flowing right out of your practice. Again, that's what this is all about, uncovering revenue that already exists in your business. All right. So go ahead and grab a pen. Hopefully you have some paper or journal or something. So let's get some golden nuggets here during this masterclass. Now, to help you understand how powerful this information is and how much revenue there is to uncover from your practice, I'm going to use an example of 2 types of practices to clearly illustrate my point. All right, we're going to call these ideal rehab and current rehab. All right, those are just 2 names I made up. The main difference for the purpose of this masterclass is that ideal rehab is going to use Pearson's Law to take advantage and measures 3 distinct metrics: utilization rate, cancellation rate, and visits per new patients. How many visits on average do you see a new patient for? That's what that is. All right, so I'm going to show you how to improve your results in these 3 areas so you also can plug up the leaky bucket and uncover more visits and more revenue. All right, so you may be wondering, all right, Jamey, that's cool, but what should these metrics ideally be? Great question. So for utilization, to have a company, to have a practice where your staff is 100% utilized and have like 0 cancellations and treat patients on an average of like 25 times is severely unrealistic, and you would have a mass exodus happening. So let me help you out here. And again, this varies from person to person, but it should be at least 85% capacity. All right, cancellation rate, it should be under 8%. If you use like percent arrival rate, that's fine. Then that would be 92. The visits per new patient's a little trickier, right? Because if you're seeing chronic pain, they might come in more times than you're seeing acute ankle sprains. So it really depends on your population and kind of your business model. But, I've been doing this, now for many years. I have my practices for over 15 years. The average I see just across the board is like 11 to 12 visits. That's the average. If you're, except in certain insurance companies or live in certain states or certain regions of the country, obviously it's going to be different, but that's just something that we're going to use today as an example. So the thing is, if you edge outside the metrics I just shared with you, you're just basically unnecessarily leaking money. So before we look at each clinic, let's make a couple of assumptions. We got to make a little assumptions here. So each of these clinics, both current and ideal rehab, they have 3 full-time therapists. Okay. Capacity is 840 visits per month, which is 70 visits per therapist. That's capacity. It's not necessarily what they're seeing. That's capacity that comes down to like the 2 an hour model. And then for easy math, because I like to keep things simple, we're going to say every visit we're generating $100 a visit. All right. So those are the examples we're going to use. So let's look at both of these scenarios, ideal rehab and current rehab side by side. There's a lot of numbers. So, let's just try to simplify it and focus on 3: utilization, cancellations, and visits per new patient. So as you can see by the chart, current rehab has a utilization rate of 71%. And ideal rehab is 85%. So this is a huge impact, because that means ideal rehab is actually seeing 114 more visits per month. So let's look at cancellation rate. Current rehab is at 12%. All right, that's reasonable in the world, right? Hey, I'm doing 12%. That might be like an average benchmark that's out there. But ideal rehab, they're crushing it. They're at 4%. This reduces both the visits seen, but as you can tell, current rehab, it's more significant, right? I mean, that's a huge difference. I mean, even if you're like, okay, Jamey, 4% is a lot. What if it was 8%? I mean, that's still a massive number of visits that are being lost every month. And then visits per new patient on average, let's say, is 9 at current rehab and 11 at ideal. So you can see that they're generating like 2 more visits per new patient, but they're treating 129 less patient visits. This is working harder, not smarter. We want to actually work smarter and not harder. So you can see that there's some major things going on. So when you account for each of these metrics, you have a loss of over $12,000 compared to ideal rehab. Now, look, this is just an example of a typical outpatient practice. I'm giving this for illustrative purposes. Your business model may be different, where you live may be different, your patient population may be different. But here's the deal, and I'm going to tell you straight up. If you're outside these optimal metrics, 85% utilization, 8% cancellation, and below 11 visits per new patient, you are leaking money. And the way to stop the leaks and take home a bigger paycheck is to follow these 4 steps for getting your $10,000 a month framework. So let's go. Let me show you these 4 steps. Step 1, as I shared with you before, is reduce. So reduce refers to reducing patient cancellations. And the first thing you have to do in order to reduce your patient cancellations is determine what your cancellation rate is. I know, Jamey, duh. Well, I can't tell you, out of the number of people, the hundreds of people I've spoken to over the years, it's amazing how many people actually know this number. So first thing, step 1, find out what percentage of people are not showing up for their appointments. In my experience, the average practice hovers between 10 and 15% cancellations. But since you're not average, if you were, you wouldn't be here, I challenge you to shoot for 8 or below. To figure out what your cancellation rate, use like at least a 3-month history of data and determine your average patient cancellation rate. So, again, hopefully your EMR has this information and it's not difficult to get. Look, if something is like 14% or higher, this should be an absolute priority due to the amount of visits and money it's costing you. All right, so number 2, now that you have your cancellation rate, you're like, okay, I know my cancellation rate. You want to ask your front desk to specifically describe how they determine a cancellation. So this is interesting. What I found is that in far too many instances, there is a breakdown of understanding, either from the front office people, office manager, they have a slightly different understanding of what a cancellation is. I've heard several different versions of a cancellation. So it's important to know if there's a discrepancy of what their cancellation is. You're not going to be able to trust your numbers. They're most likely they're going to be higher, and you're going to be losing a lot of money. To be perfectly candid with you, this happened to me, and this is why I know this is so important. And I've asked other people since then, and they've said, "Oh no, they said a cancellation was 24-hour notice." No, they said if they cancel even above this. Oh, I mean, it was so many different versions of it. So you have to fix this problem ASAP and get everyone on the same page just with what a cancellation is. So here's a little quick tip. Do it for no-shows as well, please. All right, number 3, we're still on reduce. Get clarity around this cancellation rate for each therapist. If you have multiple treating therapists, you'll want to get the cancellation rate for each of them over the past 3 months or longer. Chances are the problem isn't everybody. Rarely is the problem everybody. It usually comes down, if we know Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule, it's usually one person. If you have a clinic, let's say 3, 4, 5 therapists, usually one person bringing everyone else down. So if that's the case, what you want to do, I mean, this doesn't sound like rocket science, but what you want to do is you want to meet with them. You know, you don't want to attack them. You don't want to say, well, why is your things down and all that? But you want to be curious. You want to just be trying to understand, you know, what's going on. You know, ask them, are they clear about their targets? You know, make sure they understand why it's important that the cancellation is this way. So, you know, sometimes you might hear, well, I can't control that. And, you know, a response that I like to say is, look, we can't help people if they don't show up. You know, I mean, our job is to help as many people as we can. So you can have this conversation shifting really with the purpose of why we're all here and helping people. Definitely don't want to have kind of attacking that. And invariably you'll get the, you know, I can't make them show up and all that kind of garbage. But, you know, you can say something like, look, we have a lot of influence over our patients. I mean, we're doctors. We're some of the smartest people on the planet. And when it comes down to it, people respect us and respect our opinion. So we actually do have a ton of influence. But if they don't see value, if they don't feel your empathy, if they're not clear on why they're there, then yeah, they may actually cancel. They may actually no-show. So it kind of puts this a little bit more accountability back on the therapist. So another way, this is a really great way, another way to help therapists that have clinicians that have high cancellations is having other staff that have low cancellation rates. So it's really powerful. I mean, you saying it is one thing, but having a colleague of theirs say, here's what I'm doing to get low cancellation rates has been shown to be really, really effective for sure. And then this is probably the most important thing. Again, it's one of these simple things, but a lot of times we don't do the simple things that are necessary. You got to keep a close eye of your cancellation metric. You have to have a regular process in monitoring your metric. Not only should you maintain a dashboard, we all should have a dashboard, whether it's through your EMR or something you've created. But I also, recommend making sure that your staff has access to their dashboard so they see what their core metrics are. Not every metric in the world, but the metrics that are most important to them, like cancellation, of course, is one of them. So here's the deal. If you follow this, even if you follow it a little bit, I have total confidence that you are going to significantly reduce your cancellation rate. And it's going to get down to 8% or even better. And that's going to generate more visits in your practice. That's going to allow you to do better quality care with people. And of course, when you do that and you collect the money that you're owed, it's going to increase your bottom line. And the reason it's going to increase your bottom line, because you're most likely already paying your staff. So you're just going to become more productive without actually having to paying any more money. All right. So that was reduce. Now we're going to focus on step 2 is schedule. Schedule means scheduling out patient's plan of care, or as some people say, treatment plan. I believe there is nothing more important to improve your visits right now than to get commitments from new patients at the time of their initial appointment and scheduling out a plan of care. If you do this, if you don't take anything else away and you take this away and you're not doing this, I promise you, and you can comment and shoot me emails or whatever, I promise you this masterclass will be worth thousands of dollars to you inside of just a couple of weeks. Promise you that. All right, so here's a few things you can do specifically. Number 1, determine your plan of care. You got to be clear. The percentage of people who are actually determining the prescribed plan of care at the time of their initial visit compared to people that don't, we don't know. And if you don't know, that's the first thing we have to do is, well, how many people are prescribing the plan of care? So for instance, if you saw, let's say 10 new patients and 8 out of 10 scheduled their full plan of care, then that's 80%. Okay, well, that's not bad. I mean, my clinic, I like to have 90% of the people that come in schedule out their full plan of care right at the time of they're done with their evaluation. So you want to find out yourself, what's that number for you? Is it 6 out of 10? Is it 5 out of 10? What is it? Number 2, now that you know what that number is, you want to immediately shift to schedule out the full plan of care. Now, you might be thinking like I did initially, Jamey, I only like to schedule, a few appointments at a time. Is that bad? Look, it's not bad. It's not good. I get it. I did this. But here's why you want to schedule out the full number of visits. Here's why it's a best practice. Number 1, they get the time that they want. Number 2, they get the therapist that they want. And number 3, it's just one less thing in a busy, crazy world that we're in that they have to remember their appointments. They set it and forget it, right? It's just automatic. It's on their calendar. And that brings me to number 3, make sure they bring their calendar. I mean, I don't know if they bring a phone or a paper calendar like my wife does. She sells a paper calendar, whatever it is. Make sure they're bringing a calendar to the first visit so you can review all of the visits and just be done with them. So this might be a process you put in place, having your front desk communicate on that initial visit. And of course, you can do some follow-up sequences as well and do like reminder emails to make sure they bring their calendar. However you do it, the key is we want to make sure that we schedule all the visits out and they get the times that they want. So number 4, clearly explain the plan of care during the initial evaluation. I have observed so many clinicians during this process, during their evaluation. It's amazing how many don't clearly communicate the plan of care, the treatment plan to the patient. It's critical to pause for a second and explain this information. Why do they need to come in? What will you be doing? You don't give them that why and that what, they're gonna think of their own stuff. And believe me, they're not going to think of what you think of. They'll think of why not to come in so many visits, right? They'll think of, oh, well, all I'm doing is a bunch of stretches, or all I will be doing. We can't take that chance. So here's a little verbiage you can say. Hey, Mrs. Smith, I want to see you 2 times a week for 6 weeks. The first thing we're going to do is focus on managing your pain that you're in, because I know you're in a lot of pain. We're going to help you with that. And next, we're going to improve your range of motion. We're going to get you more flexibility. And we're going to focus on getting you stronger. Then we're going to focus on getting some functional movements back so you can get back to playing tennis. How does that sound? That's it. Clear. Allow them to ask questions around that. But you're giving them a picture of what they're going to go through without being too medical jargony, without that. But you're pausing. You're not doing treatment yet. You're not combining the treatment and the evaluation. I know some people do it. I highly recommend against that, but you're being very clear and communicative with them. So that is step 2.